All right.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking. What is it called?
It's
Nah,
the
nah, nah.
Crystal Light, bro.
Yeah.
If you ain't drinking,
There's 3 of them.
if you ain't getting hype off Crystal Light,
Mm.
get right.
We might have to fight.
Fight those demons. You better start believing. Stop being a heathen. Can't you hear what I'm hearing? That's the Holy Spirit.
Welcome back to A Light in the Dark. I'm your co-host, Keegan.
And I am the other co-host, Matt.
And today we have a real special episode. We're going to be going through our testimony series, and Matt is going to get the opportunity to share his awesome testimony. And I'm really excited to hear. We've talked a little bit about your testimony before, and I feel like there's a lot packed in there. And so I'm really excited for you guys to get the chance to hear what he's been through and what he's gotten to experience. And I'm really excited.
Yeah, so I guess where I should start is by saying that I didn't grow up in a consistently religious household. I had family members that were religious, but I never did my own pursuit of God. And I guess another key point from my life is that my parents have been separated since I was a baby, and that played a big role in like my lifestyle and my friendships, and I'm not really saying in like a traumatic way, but it's just like the way I had to live my life in like two very different environments, being my mom's house and my dad's house being almost like polar opposite houses. And it kind of like shaped me into creating like a life where I always seemed to be in the middle, like, and that was with everything. I would say with like school and with like sports and just like a lot of the events and environments in my life, I was always like felt like I was in the middle. And I mean that in a way of like average and never fully committed to anything. So I just want to start by saying that. And then I guess because when Keegan was saying that we had talked about my testimony a little bit in the future, Keegan had me discuss like as many memories as I could remember as possible, and it was honestly a great conversation. No one has ever asked me to do that before, so I really appreciate that. It made me realize a lot of life events that had happened that I'd forgot about, and it made me remember a lot of the important ones as well. So thank you for doing that for me, brother. Thank you.
Of course. I feel like it's important. A lot of times we don't take the time to reflect on what's happened in our lives. And I feel like, especially since we've gotten the chance to experience God and seeing what he can do, I think it's super important to see where he was throughout your life and,
For sure,
what he's done. But, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I know you want me to start off with this, so I'm gonna. So my very first memory that I can really think of is there was a time in my life when I was a toddler that so we're going way back. We're going to
Baby Matt.
Yes, sir. Like very first memories. I was so I was at my mom's house, and at my mom's house I had an older brother. He was about, I think he's 6 years older than me, and he was my older brother. I was a toddler, so we were playing, we were messing around, and I was like wrestling with him. My brother was on a elevated surface, and I was like trying to climb up onto him, and I somehow was pushed off and hit the back of my head against a coffee table. So yeah, it was crazy. The only part that I really remember is hitting my head, but then like I remember like laying on the laying on the floor, and like I could like see my mom like rushing to go do something, and then that's like the last thing I remember. I definitely, I mean, this was 20 years ago, so I mean, not the perfect memory, but like that's like the last image I can really remember vividly until I woke up at the hospital. And it's funny that I remember this, but I remember I remember the doctor being here, my mom being here, and like they were like talking about what had happened. And this was like after whatever procedure that they had done. So, and I remember they gave me a popsicle as like a good job, you survived this damaging experience. And the popsicle was purple, and I don't know if that matters at all. I don't know if that's like I don't know if, I don't know if that's a thing, but I vividly remember that. And yeah, it was a moment in my life where now looking back on it, like God definitely saved me, because I feel like there's a complete, from when I hit my head and I was on the ground, I blacked out. Like, so I don't know what happened in that time. I don't know if I was saved by God or this Holy Spirit or something. Yeah. But yeah, it was a scary moment, and thankful to be alive, for sure.
I know, it really is a blessing. I mean, I feel like it is crazy. Your first vivid memory is something that intense. Like, that's...
Yeah, I mean, at this point in my life, after this, I don't really remember a lot. I remember going from house to house as a young child was pretty tough, just because, like, I mean, I loved my parents, obviously. They're great people. And yeah, when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old, like having to leave another parent's house to go to another parent to visit, like spend time with them, like on weekends or weekdays, whoever's house I was spending the night at, it was always hard. Like I said, obviously I love my parents, and I enjoyed spending time with them. So there would be a lot of days where like I would be leaving a parent and I would be crying, or and I'd be leaving another parent, going to another parent's house, and I'd be crying. And like there would be a lot of days where I just would cry because I was separating myself from my parents, and I didn't really, or from a single parent for a moment of time. And I didn't really know why. Like, it just was like my life. Like, I just had to deal with it. And yeah, it kind of like created, I think that's where it started to create that feeling of like, it's hard to commit to one thing. Because like I said, my mom's house and my dad's house were very different. And like my mom was in Portland. That's like the one city of where we are from Maine. And then my dad was in like a very rural part of Falmouth. So like all of my friends were with like at my mom's house, and like at my dad's house, there like wasn't, I didn't know really many people around there besides my dad and my dad's side of the family. That's who I would spend a lot of time with when I was with my dad, which was great. I built a great bond with my dad's side of the family. But yeah, it was just like a weird feeling being in a completely opposite living environment. So
when you say opposite, can you elaborate on like what your experience was at the different houses? Like,
yeah, for sure. So at my mom's house, I would be able to spend a lot of time with friends, like get invited to like party. Like, I mean, this is like this is elementary school, so like getting invited to like birthday parties, like having friends come over, or I go to a friend's house. Like it was very social, and I loved it. I loved it. I always enjoyed being around people, and it was awesome. But at my dad's house, it would kind of just be me and my dad, or me and my dad's family. Like I didn't really invite people over to my dad's house just because it was like 30 minutes away, 20 to 30 minutes away. And yeah, it was, so a lot of times it was just me and my dad, and my sister. And I would honestly just like play a lot of video games. Yeah, that's fair. I started playing video games very young. I was probably like elementary school, like 7. I really started to get into video games. I had a PS2, best console ever, by far. So yeah, I've grew to love video games because I mean, like, what kid doesn't? What boy doesn't love video games? Yeah. Like, I never. That was like my, I guess, my escape from like not being around my friends, which was okay. Like I don't want it to seem like it was a bad thing, but yeah. So that's at my mom's house. I was like around a lot of people, getting to spend a lot of time with people, with kids my age, and at my dad's house, it was a little more isolated. So yeah, and then so I was lucky to be able to play sports growing up. I played football, baseball. So I met a lot of friends that way. So like I would be spending a lot of time with them, and leaving to go to my dad's was sometimes hard just because I couldn't be around my friends. And I didn't know anybody around my dad's house. So it was a very rural area. So, yeah, so made a lot of friends, end up now we're in middle school, and middle school was cool. I felt like I was able to branch out from middle school and meet even more people, which was awesome. I always loved that. I always loved being around people. And I always felt like deep down I was an extroverted person because, like I said, like I like to have fun. I like to be around people, and it was always great. But then I would end up going to my dad's house where, again, I would be alone. So I loved being around people, but I felt like I never really got that. I never got like enough social experience to really like, I felt like it took me a little bit longer to develop my social abilities because I would have that time going to my dad's and not being around as many people. And another thing about my dad's was my dad is he's a very hardworking guy. And he would he always instilled that in me, like make sure I'm hardworking. So a lot of times like we would be like what we would be doing on a Saturday is like splitting wood, or like going to like a tree job, or like going to like pick up logs of wood for our fireplaces. Like, so, yeah. And then at my mom's, I'd be like hanging out with people, like going into Portland, like downtown Portland, like doing more social things. So it was, like I said, like polar opposites.
Yeah, and that's so interesting. I'm curious, like, did your friends know any of that side of like?
Honestly, not really. I didn't really. I don't know. I always like felt it was always like kind of a weird feeling going over. Not a weird feeling going to my dad's, but it was just like, I don't know. I never really opened up about that part of my life because it was so different to what was going on in Portland. Yeah. So I never really opened up about it. And yeah, and that's like kind of a reoccurring theme for my life is I never really truly opened up to people and never allowed myself to express my true emotions, because like I said, I didn't really know how to commit to something like that. Like I didn't really, like, I felt being in two different places, it was like kind of hard for me to like build an identity, I guess, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely makes sense.
Because yeah, and again, like I feel like that leads to me not being able to commit to a lot of things, and being like lazy about a lot of things. And so yeah, I in middle school meet a bunch of people, make a bunch of new friends. It's awesome. And yeah, I feel like high school is where I really started. Okay, well, let me go back. And then in middle school, I had my sister, or my dad. I had my. I'm gonna just explain my siblings, because I feel like, because like I said, I had an older brother, and then in middle school, I had my sister on my dad's side. I have a younger sister, and she is 8 years younger than me. And then at the end of middle school, so 8th grade going into freshman year of high school, my mom had two babies, two twins, a boy and a girl. So they are 14 years younger than me. So again, part of my life where I'm right in the middle. Like I'm right in the middle of all of my siblings. I love all of my siblings. All of my siblings are great, of course, and they played a huge role of me, like, just loving family, because I feel like I learned a lot from my siblings, especially my older brother. So yeah, yeah, dang, I'm really gonna have to like talk about my older brother. He went through a lot of troubled situations, so it really made me realize like things that I shouldn't do. So I felt like seeing those things happen, and like seeing how my mom would react to those things, it made, and my dad being like such a stern and like solid guy, it taught me to be solid, and I just like was able to like kind of like take care of myself in a way. And it just allowed me to see like how to be a good person. So yeah, in middle school, this is when I went to church the most before I came to Christianity. My mom would take me to go to church any Sunday I was with her, from like 7th grade to 8th grade. Or sorry, that's wrong. From like 5th grade to 6th grade. And at this time, yeah, and I did enjoy church. I wasn't really focused in it, because I don't know. I've never been I couldn't focus. So, but I was able to make a lot of friends at church that I ended up going to school with. So that was great. I did enjoy church, and I feel like that's why like I felt like I've always like felt spirituality, because of me having to go to church for those few years. And at that time I was doing band, and like still playing like football and baseball. So again, like those are like two complete opposite things. Like band and then sports are just very different. And I mean, I chose my path. I chose sports at the time. And I partially regret it. I would have loved to have learned more about music, looking back on it now, but that's okay. Everything happened for a reason.
Sure did.
So yeah, so that's like fifth, sixth grade, seventh grade. Seventh, eighth grade, I kind of stopped getting out of church, because I don't know. I couldn't. I guess I didn't care enough. I drifted away from the church, and unfortunately,
It happens.
yeah. So in high school, I meet even more people. It's great. And I slowly start going to my dad's house a little bit less, but that's just because I was starting to trying to fully ingrain myself into like my Portland life.
Yeah.
But like in the back of my mind, I always felt bad about that because I love my dad, of course, and he taught me a lot, and I just again like trouble committing. Like I obviously would go to my dad's as much as I could, but it was like no matter which house I was at, I was like, dang, I'm missing out on whatever's going on in Portland or whatever's going on at my dad's. I mean, it's something I'm still trying to work on, but like I had FOMO. I've always had FOMO.
I feel like also that's really hard to juggle. Like you're young, and like you wanna make everyone happy.
Of course.
And so I understand. Like it's super valid that you're feeling that way.
Yeah, and it was like I've always like tried not to be selfish. Like because of having so many siblings, I realized like it's not about me. Like my parents, I always had either a younger sibling under me or something going on there was always something going on with another sibling, which is okay. Like so I had a lot of time to be like realize like it's not all about me. Like you gotta make sure everybody around you is okay. Like you said, like try to make everybody happy.
How did that make you feel?
What feeling? Like what?
Like having things going on outside of you, and like how did it make you feel when you were trying to make sure everyone else was feeling good?
I enjoyed making others happy, and I enjoyed knowing what was best, was what most likely was happening, because I mean my siblings were younger than me, so like they took precedence, which is okay. But there was a lot of times where I would definitely feel alone, just because my parents had priorities, which is okay. And that definitely started to happen a lot. I would say like freshman, sophomore year of high school, because I had to go from one house to another house. I again, I felt like I couldn't fully commit to my friends in Portland. So I had a lot of people that I knew in school, but I only had like a few friends that I was like truly close with at the time. And yeah, like having to, and like if those friends were doing something, I would always like feel weird asking to like hang out with other people that I didn't feel as comfortable with, or like try to meet or like grow a bond with somebody new. Because like I've always knew like I would have to spend an extended period of time with other people, or people would be trying to do something and I'd be at another house. So yeah, I had like a good core group of friends, but outside of that, I didn't really know too many people. Like I knew people, but I wasn't close with other people. So like if my friends were busy and it was just me, like I felt that a lot, where I would just be alone, like biking around Portland, like listening to music, which always helped. Listening to music definitely always helped. I would say freshman to sophomore year, when I started to get those feelings, I felt like I would always, like that feeling of aloneness, I would always resort to music. And that, that's crazy. I felt like that was the one thing I could really commit to, which is crazy to say now. Because, I mean, music, I would be like I said, biking around Portland, walking around Portland, and just like play an album that just came out from like one of my favorite artists. And I felt like that was the best way for me to really understand another person's perspective. And just because I felt like I could really like take the time to listen to like an hour album, and I would listen to them over and over again, especially my favorite albums. And it just helped a lot. Like being alone and experiencing another human being's stories was great. And I fell in love with music, and it's always been something I've enjoyed talking about and diving deeper in. I will say, I there was a time it also made me realize like music helped me realize like I'm not always right. Like I would always feel like I was, if like I was talking to somebody about music, I would only feel like I was right about it, and that's just not true. Junior senior year, I was super excited to try to get into college. I felt like, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's always, I really wanted to go to college because no one in my family had really ever gone to college like that, especially yeah. So I was like really inspired to be like the first one in my family to ever go to college, graduate college. But I mean, I wasn't a great student. I got B's, like only B's. Like again, like when I talk about being in the middle, like being, that's where that feeling of like I'd always been average with, because I didn't care. Like I didn't care about, I just didn't want to commit to it. I didn't want to put in the extra effort. So I sign up for the University of Maine. I go there for one semester because again, like I just felt like, again, I didn't commit. I tried to get too involved in too many things, and I never committed to school. I never fully committed. I would join the rugby team. I never fully committed to that. It's just like I can, now that we're talking about this, I can really see the effects of like having to go and live in two different places like really affected me as like a commitment person. I never like went in deep with anything growing up, and it's honestly sad because I felt like I would show flashes of showing potential. Like a lot of teachers would say that to me, like if you just tried a little bit hard, if you just did these things, you could be like, you could really do something great. And I like just brushed it off because like a lot of things I didn't care about, unfortunately. So yeah, go to Orono for a semester, and for a couple months I was just living at home, wasn't working. I was just literally from January of 2019 to like February 2019 or like March 2019, I was just like living at my mom's house, just like smoking a bunch of weed, playing video games all day, watching porn, and like just getting deep into depression and not really realizing it. Like I never really had like an emotional side to me, so I never really realized when my routine or my tendencies whereas because I was depressed. Because I was always also involved, like doing things. Like I always tried to do things like football and video games. Like video games are a crazy distraction.
Yeah.
Just like completely take your mind off whatever. So yeah, I wasn't doing much for about 2 months, and I finally started working at a pizza place called Portland House of Pizza.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Love that place.
Yeah, me too. A little side story. Mm, My family and I, we used to get Portland House of Pizza a lot. We'd get it like at least once a week. And I remember one time my mom said she saw you in there. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And so then the next time, I think maybe next week, we went in and like just seeing you was so cool. Because I feel like I did a terrible job of staying in touch with people. And you were one of the few that I like stayed in touch with. But I didn't know what you were doing because, like you said, like we'd be so distracted with video games, we wouldn't like share what we were doing. It was just like, yo, you trying to play 2K tonight? Like, what,
sure.
you know? And so.
No, it's true. And I feel like that also adds to another thing. Like, I couldn't, like, commit. I feel like a big reason I couldn't commit to a lot of things was because of video games. Like, I always, like, would distract myself with those. And I never, at least growing up, I never learned that, like sometimes you just have to, like, work. Like, sometimes you just have to stop distracting yourself and focus on something and, like, work at it. I guess I didn't really learn that until like my early 20s. But at Portland House Pizza, it started at 11. Like, my shift would start at 11, so I'd wake up at like 10:30, and I lived super close, so I could, like, bike there or drive there in like 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I would, like, wake up at 10:30, work from like 11 a.m. to like 10 p.m. and then just, like, bring home, like, I brought home so much food, and, like, I was eating awful food, like I mean, it's a pizza place, so pizza and fried, like, just bad stuff. And I still didn't realize how much this was affecting me because I was distracting myself with video games. I was distracting myself with porn. I was distracting myself with weed. And so I worked there for like 6 months. And I actually ended up moving out of my mom's house, which was pretty cool. I finally realized, like, I can, like, be myself now. I can, like, just do what I can, like, work on myself and try to become a better person and aspire to actually do something. But it allows you to be independent, and it allows you to, I don't know, it's just, your parents love you, of course. Mm-hmm. Or at least I hope they love you. They want to keep you safe. That's what parents do, and which is their job. That's what their brains are wired to do. So when you are living with them, they want you to do what they feel like is the safest thing for you. So when I was able to move out, I was able to try to inspire myself more to do riskier things. Mm-hmm. And I mean that in like a life experience way, not like risky, like
jump over a fence and push over a cow.
But I mean, my routine started to get better. At this point, I was like the heaviest I've ever been in my life. I was like 220, like my whole life. I had gotten up to 240 pounds, so I was a big dude. And I started working out, started changing my diet, which was great. I could, like, choose what my diet was, but I was still in, like, a rut of smoking, porn, video games, and that's like, it was like a daily thing, and just same routine, but now I had added working out, so I could like feel myself like in my mental health and my spirit like growing. I was like, okay, so this is what it's like to like not feel like crap. Because there was a while where I was very depressed, and I was just chasing dopamine highs. So yeah, I get to that point. So this is September 2019 because I had moved out on my birthday, which is kind of funny.
That's crazy.
Yeah, me and my roommate at the time, we were really like, we were inspired. Like, we were working out, we were changing our diet, and me and my roommate at the time were pretty similar people. We were super hype about the new decade. I mean, I feel like everyone was hype about the new decade. Like, it's a new decade, 2020. We're turning 20 in 2020. Like, let's be great. Like let's do this. Like, let's live a great life. This is the foundation of our life. And obviously COVID happened. And while COVID was happening, I was actually switching jobs, from Portland House of Pizza. I worked there for about a year, to a warehouse job, and the hours there were trash, like awful. Like, the hours were from like, I can't remember what my first shift was. It was 12 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Wow.
So yeah, like literally the worst. And like, I would go there, and from like 12 a.m. to like 8 a.m. it would be, or like, maybe not that, like 7 a.m. it would be nothing. Like, we would just do nothing. We would just sit there, because what the job was is I had to like pretty much like take the trash out of like huge trucks, like the like 18-wheeler trucks.
Okay. Yeah.
And no trucks would come in at that time, so we would literally just be like sitting there. Like, some people would sleep in their chairs. Like, I would try to sleep in my chair, but I never could.
Yeah.
And it was just awful.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was trash job, like literally. But my dad was able to get me this job because this was the company he had worked at for like 20 something years. So I stuck it out, and I was like, my dad was trying really hard to like promote me into like a better area where you're not moving trash. So I stuck it out. It was about 3 weeks of that. So as my routine was getting pretty solid, my routine just completely crashed again. Because like, you work 12 to 10, or sometimes it was like 12 to 12.
That's crazy.
Because you just like couldn't stop until everything was done. Yeah. But so yeah, and I just like eat when I got home, and then just go to and like try to sleep, which was impossible. Like, trying to sleep in the middle of the day like that, like I would probably sleep like 4 hours a day.
That's tough.
And I mean, I'm a rock. Like, I love to sleep. I love, like, if I get less than 7 hours of sleep, I'm not gonna be the same person. Like, I'm just gonna be a weirdo. But I was able to get promoted, which is great. So I started actually making pretty good money at this job, because it was a production job. So the faster you work, the faster you get stuff done, the more money you make. And like I said, at a young age, my dad instilled in me that like hard work ethic, and it allowed me to work pretty fast. So I was making a lot of money, but this promotion I got, the schedule was still trash. Like, I was working from 5 p.m. to like 1 a.m., which was better, but still not great because I would get home and I would just like, well, first off, I would like drink an energy drink at like 5, and I'd just be like up until like 3 a.m. even after work, and like still just like smoke, porn. Porn was so bad for me. Porn was like the worst thing looking back on it. Like even worse than bud, than smoking. Like I'll be honest, like I had an OnlyFans account. Like it was bad. Like I was paying for porn, and it was so bad. Like cuz it was just COVID was tough for me. Like I was just working. I didn't really hang out with a lot of people, and I was just smoking. I started working out again. I started doing kickboxing, which was fun. It was really fun. But I just like was very depressed.
Yeah, well, I just want to touch on that a little bit because I feel like it might sound like crazy or whatever, but like OnlyFans blew up over that time period.
Yeah.
So it's not like out of pocket, like you know what I mean? Like it's like I feel like there are a lot of people that are gonna hear this and be like, actually, my wallet was doing the same thing. So, the fact that you're willing to bring it to light is awesome. So, and like I struggle with porn all the time. Like,
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I don't want it to be. Yeah, I think that's probably the most like taboo subject because it's kind of like one of those things everyone does, but they're just like,
you're a simp, bro.
Yeah,
you pay for that. Like, so like, not only was it taking money away from me, it was like taking like happiness away from me because I was just like, because like you said, it was taboo, and I was like, wow, I'm really paying for this, but like I need it. Like I need this dopamine fix. So yeah, I worked there for about 9 months because I realized like I said, like I'd always, because of me having to go to church, I'd always felt like a spiritualness in a way, but not knowing what it was, and I was always trying to find what that was. So yeah, another thing I will say is I feel like smoking all the time was a way for me to try to find that spiritualness. So like I tried mushrooms during this time period because I was like, I need to find like an answer. I need to find an answer to whatever this is, and I thought mushrooms would help with that. But it was like a temporary happiness kind of. Like it was fun. It was a great moment, and like the after effects, it like kind of felt like a reset of everything. Like I kind of was just like, I kind of helped me like take in life a little bit more. Like it did help me realize like what I was really doing working at this place. And I realized like this schedule is not for me. This is not a life I want to live. So I felt bad because my dad had gotten it for me, got me this job, but I knew it wasn't the right thing to do. So yeah, I leave there and I start working at another warehouse, a local grocery store called Rosemont. That was an awesome. I actually loved that place. I had everyone there was super nice. I had a great manager who taught me a lot about like keeping a positive mindset and like just life is going to throw you crazy things. Just try to stay positive throughout all of it. Which was something I definitely struggled with a lot in life. Like any type of little hardship I would just fold because I don't know. I just would get discouraged. So, and that's another thing. I feel like that's another reason why it was so hard for me to commit to things, was because I was such like a dopamine junkie. Like I needed to, if something got hard, I would just be like, I don't want to do this. Like I can do something else that'll make me excited or make me happy, which was like probably playing video games or something. But yeah, so I started working there, and it was great. I actually did have a pretty good. That was a great era of a great season. Gotta speak the Christians.
I know, yeah.
That was a great season of my life, honestly, because I was working 5 a.m. to 1 p.m., which sounds pretty extreme, but it's actually a pretty good schedule because in like the summer, the spring, the summer and fall, you're out at 1 p.m. and it just feels like there's a whole other day to do. Like you get out in the middle of the day, it's like you just feel like you can conquer the day. Yeah. So I would like go home. At this time, I was working out consistently, and I got inspired to become a video game content creator.
Yes, sir.
And this is something I would like meditate on. Like I found like a little like literal like sitting down, meditate, and like just try to like listen to my thoughts. And I thought like this was gonna be my way to connect to people. Like I wanted to try to connect to like honestly my mindset was I want to connect to like kids growing up that were like me, like loved video games and but were like still like had friends, like had a lot of friends and were involved in a lot of things. So like I thought YouTube and video game like content was going to be how I was going to connect to people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I did that for a little while. I was pretty focused on it. Like I was recording everything I was playing. I was like excited to try to be funny and whatnot, but that fell through completely. I never had the confidence to post myself, even though I enjoyed recording and enjoyed what I was doing because I was doing so. I loved playing video games. I was playing with my friends, and I was inspired in a way where I thought I was going to be able to connect to people, but I never posted. I probably have like hundreds of things recorded, but I never posted them. Something was always holding me back, which was weird. And at this time, I meet my ex-girlfriend at Rosemont, and we started spending a lot of time together, which was awesome. I hadn't had a relationship in like 3 years, I guess, at the time. So it was great. Like it was great to have a girlfriend again, and it was like a real adult relationship because we were both working, and I will say at this time of my life, me and my former roommate, we moved to a house that my grandparents owned. And this was, it was a great place. Like that was a great season of my life. I was living in a big house, working out, making money. It was great. Now I have a girlfriend. Well, actually, I'll say this first. My former roommate left spontaneously.
Yes. Out of nowhere.
Yeah, like there was no communication with that, but that doesn't matter. Yeah. It was just a weird thing. Unfortunate. Yeah. But that same weekend, like a month after he leaves, that's when I have my first night out with my girlfriend, or my ex-girlfriend. And also another crazy thing, this was a great weekend. Like this was that same weekend, Kanye dropped Donda, so it was like.
So it was a mid-weekend is what we're saying.
Chill, that was pretty good.
Right? No, it is good.
I will say the best song on that album, I think, is called Jesus Lord Part 2. If you gotta listen to it. So yeah, I started dating my ex-girlfriend, and it was a lot of fun. Like I said, it was like a true adult relationship. We were going out, going to restaurants. It helped me explore Portland, helped me explore Maine. Like it was a really good relationship. Like, she didn't really argue. She was like super okay with like me being a gamer and like spending a lot of time playing video games. At this point, I feel like this is when we really like you and me had our like core gaming friend group. It was great.
Yeah, playing with the boys.
Yeah, it was great. So I was spending a lot of time playing video games. She was okay with that. So it was a great relationship. What?
No, that is an awesome relationship. Like I didn't have to spend any time no. That's what my brain went to, but then I was like, no, I know that's not at all what you mean, but it was just.
If that's funny. What it sounded like.
That's just how my brain. No, that's just how my brain envisioned it, and I was just like, oh yeah, that does sound great, but.
Nah, it was. No, it probably did sound like that. No, it did. But yeah, that it was because I was like, I'm making content. Like it's like I was like giving myself an excuse to continue to play video games and not branch out into something more productive. But it was weird because it was like it's like deep down I always knew like this isn't something I can like really do, because I don't know, video games, it's not real, but like I would get so invested into them just because I loved the competition and I loved hanging out with my friends. Like that was how our friend group hung out, was by playing video games together. Like we wouldn't hang out in person, which is okay, but we would hang out in PlayStation party chat for like 5 hours.
Yeah, bro. What do you mean? We were hanging out in the rec together, bro. Our virtual characters, man. Yeah. What are you saying?
So it was like deep down, I like knew this wasn't it. Something was telling me it wasn't it. So yeah, for that goes on for about. I work at Rosemont for a year, and then they sadly actually I'm not going to say that, because I'm actually glad they let me go, because this is when I started working with my dad. My dad is an arborist, and he had an arborist business, but he was still working at this warehouse that he had been working with for the 20-something years. And this was honestly awesome. Like in the moment, I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. But like I said, in high school, I stopped going to my dad's as much. Just because my whole high school and my 20s, I stopped going to my dad's as much because my life was in Portland, and I wanted to like, once I moved to my first apartment, I was like, I wanted to like feel independent and like branch out.
You want to immerse yourself in where you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I started working with my dad, which was great. This started February 2022. I remember getting fired. They had me, it was really weird. So like I said, I would go in at like 5 to Rosemont. So I went in to Rosemont, and my job was to build pallets that would go to the stores, and I would deliver them to the stores. So I got there at like 5. I build the pallets, and then at like 8 o'clock, that's when they take me into an office and like fire me.
What? That's so toxic.
Yeah, it was so weird. It was
that
like
is so toxic.
It was like And it was weird. I could like feel my time at Rosemont like coming to an end because there was some people there that talked a lot.
Gotcha.
And I don't want to make it seem like it was a toxic place because Rosemont was actually a great job.
Yeah, you've had a lot of good things.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, the way things end can leave a bitter taste.
Yeah.
And that's both, they can both be true.
Yeah. So I could like feel my time coming to an end there. And they let me go they let me go at a weird time, like having me work for 3 hours and they were like, you're gonna get paid for these 3 hours, and I was like, okay, you just fired me.
Yeah.
So
I want it in cash right now.
Yeah, like what? Like I don't care. I just lost my job.
Yeah.
But my manager was super cool. He was like, yo, if you need help finding a job, reach out, let me know. He had a lot of connections in Portland. My manager was a G. Yeah. So yeah, and I mean, like I said, my girlfriend at the time was great. I get home at like 8:30, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "They just fired me," and she's like, "What?" And I like didn't really care.
Mm-hmm. To clarify, you guys were living together at this point, or were you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So me and my girlfriend were living together at this point. Thank you.
Good call.
Me and my girlfriend were living together at this point. Girlfriend at the time were living together at this point. And I get home, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Yeah, they just fired me." And it was weird. Like, I didn't really care. And it wasn't because I didn't care about the job or like, it was like I knew everything was going to be okay. It was weird. Like, I felt like throughout my life, especially in my I'm still in my 20s, but like from like 21 to now, or like 20 to now, like I would always say things like thank you world, thank you universe, like thank you, or like why is the universe doing this to me? Why is the world doing this? So
it's like you knew there was something, but
I
you couldn't put your finger on it.
Yeah, like I knew there was I knew it was a spiritual world, but like I knew like everything was gonna be okay, because so I didn't even apply to any jobs. I just like called my dad and I was like, "Yo, I'll start working for you right now," because it was always something. As a young adult, he would like always like mention like, "Hey, we should start this arborist thing," because he was a great arborist, but he was only doing it half-time. So yeah, I told him I'd work for him. This was in the winter, and he was still working at the warehouse, and he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." He was like, I'm still gonna work at the warehouse for a little bit. So he was like, he kind of just gave me free reign to like do me. What I would do is I would go to we have like this plot of land where we have like a bunch of equipment, and where we would like put logs to process for firewood. So I would just like process firewood for like 4 hours a day. I was only working like 20 hours a week in that winter, which was great. I was still making content, so I was like, this is my break. This is where I'm going to make content and like make sure it's great. And I put the time into it, but I still never posted anything. It was so weird. So yeah, I work for my dad. Still dating my girlfriend. That goes on for about 9 months. And then I decide, like, again, I still knew, actually, while I'm working with my dad was this is why I say I really am so happy for this moment, and why I really feel like God's timing is always crazy. Because so in the spring of 22, me and my dad start getting really busy. We have a lot of tree jobs, and I'm spending every day with my dad, which is like a great thing and a bad thing. Not a bad thing. A tough thing, because me and my dad, like, we don't argue, but we have different ways of looking at things. My dad is a very, like, there's one way and it's the right way, and I'm a very, like, well, I mean, you can think about things, you can, like, try different things. So we conflicted in those ways, but it never ended up into any, like, serious arguments. But there was a lot of times my dad would be so inspiring, like, just always telling me, like, I can do anything I put my mind to, and he was an example of it, because he worked in a warehouse for 20 something years. He, like, slowly started to, like, just learn arborist information through, like, watching videos and reading books, and he, like, self-taught himself how to be an arborist. And he was a living example, and he, like, got his arborist license. So yeah, he was, like, a living example of, you can do anything you put your mind to. It doesn't matter how old you are, the timing. Well, the timing does matter. It's God's timing. But so I was like, I've always loved music. Like, music was always there for me when I needed something. So I was like, I want to get into singing. I would love to get into singing. I didn't mention this, but this is to go way back. In high school, I did theater, and I really loved theater. I loved bringing emotion out of people through my actions, whether they were funny or whatever. I loved seeing people laugh, and, like, because of something I was doing. And that feeling stuck with me for a while. I feel like that's why I really wanted to get into gaming content, was because I wanted people to feel inspired or something by my actions, by me recording myself playing. Not just inspired, but, like, happy. Like, I wanted people to feel happy because of something I was doing. Yeah, my dad. So I decided I wanted to get into singing, which was crazy timing, because I wasn't able to find a teacher for a while. Like, I really got inspired to start just taking singing and music theory lessons in the summer of 22. But I was searching for teachers around my area for a while, but I never found a teacher until that December of 22. And at this point, I had started working at a new job where I currently work now as a loan lender. Completely opposite from an arborist, as working as an arborist. So, because that was another thing that I knew deep down wasn't my life. Like, so I was like, hey, I enjoy talking to people. I feel like I have, like, a charisma about me that can, like, work in sales. And so I decided to try something completely different. I'd never had an office job before. So yeah, I'm working there now. And then I find a teacher December of 22. And then January, she said she can't start until upcoming January, for personal reasons. And what's crazy is this is when you started to really get into Christianity, and you really started talking to me about, or talking to our friend group about Christianity and God. And I remember it was always intriguing. Like, I remember one thing that always stuck out to me was it's a spirit that you would say is it's a spiritual world, and it's like their spirits are always in warfare with each other. So I was always intrigued about what you were saying, and I did really want to learn more, but it was like, I don't know, I didn't pursue it at the time, just because I had a girlfriend. I was trying to make content, and I was working full time. So it just wasn't it wasn't something I'd really thought of yet. It's just crazy that the time I start to practice singing, you start talking to me about God. Let me say this. Singing lessons start in the January, and I'm still working at One Main. You start talking about San Francisco. Jokingly asked the group if anybody would like to join. And
and it was very much joking.
Was it? Or is it serious?
No.
Did you know someone would say yes?
No, I was low key. I was like, nah, no one's gonna take me up on this offer. Like, it was kind of just like one of those things. You're like, yeah, I'm going to San Fran. Who's trying to pull up? And then, but you. So
yeah, I took it serious because I had lived my whole life in Portland, and my whole life I had always had this like yearning to live somewhere else for an extended period of time and just explore the world as much as I could, just because there's so much out there. Like, there's no reason to confine yourself to one area. I mean, you can, even if you don't like wherever you go, you can always go back. Like, you might as well try. There's no reason not to try and experience something, because you never know. You might love it. You might hate it, and then it's just how you find your identity. So yeah, I replace content creating with singing, and then I had like an epiphany where I was like, this is the thing I have to commit to. Like, my whole life I had never been 110% in anything, and it showed with content creating too. Like, so I was like singing every day, and you were still talking to our friend group about God and the things you were learning, which was awesome. I still had a girlfriend, so this was another great season of my life. But yeah, you talked to us you asked if anybody wants to come. At first, I didn't take it seriously too, but like slowly I started to realize this was a great opportunity. And as you were talking about God, I was like, all things that I felt like I could relate to, which is why testimonies are so important. But yeah,
what about the conversation you had like a year before?
Oh yeah, so one of my gaming buddies had moved to California. Shout out to B-Sal.
Yes, sir.
I hope you're listening.
Well, no, we got to come visit soon.
Facts. Let us know when you got a weekend off. We want to visit Monterey so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell my friend, like, I tell him, this is before you had even talked about SF. I was like, yo, give me a year and I'm going to move to California, because the company I work for is nationwide and they have offices all over the country. So it was a great opportunity to really move to pretty much any state I wanted to, which is crazy to think. So yeah, I tell him, give me a year. I'm going to move to California. I want to experience. I felt like that was a great opportunity to be able to move to a whole new city or a whole new state and still know somebody.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I didn't do that at that time. Because I felt like I would have been drowning now that I think about it. But yeah, so I say that to him, and then you bring up moving to SF, and that wasn't even really a connection I made until you and I had a pretty conversation, a pretty in-depth conversation about God, and this was like June of 23. Wow, that's crazy. That feels like so long ago. So yeah, June of 23, we have a great conversation about God and about SF, and I tell you, I'm like, yo, I'm actually, if you really do need a roommate, I will go. And I felt like at first you didn't think I was serious.
Yeah, I didn't. I was like, Well, I remember I went home and I had a conversation with my mom, and I was like, Matt says he's interested, but I don't like, I don't know if he's actually gonna do it. But I, I also was like, I was pursuing God, and I remember being like, yeah, you should pray about it, like just like think about what
Yeah.
it will look like, because it's a big step.
No, for sure. But I could like definitely feel in my spirit like this was the opportunity. So yeah, and then I go to church with Keegan for like a couple Sundays in a row, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. Like this is happening. I remember at first I would like show up late and be like, it's okay. I'll just miss the music part. But so yeah, I tell my family, and I tell my family and I tell my girlfriend, and a couple of my family members were super okay with it. Some of my family members were not. When my family heard that because no one in my family had really ever done that before. I tell my family about it, I tell my girlfriend about it, and I'm glad I told them as early as I did, even though it was still only like 3 months, if that.
Yeah.
It was like 2 months of preparation. So yeah, my family thought about it. They were all on board for me, and yeah, at this point, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like I just couldn't stop thinking about moving here, and I also was continuing to go to church more and more. I started going to the church that Keegan was going to at the perfect time, because they were doing this thing called Stories of the Bible, where they would compare, they would compare stories from the Bible to real life stories of people that go to the congregation, and it was awesome. Like hearing people's real life stories of how God had moved in their lives was exactly what I needed to hear. And that's like July is when it hit me. I was like, yep, this is it. Like this is that spiritualness that I've always felt. It was God. It was God, and Jesus is. At first I didn't have a relationship. I didn't have a relationship with Jesus. But yeah, I was like, this is it right here. This is the spiritualness I had been feeling. So yeah.
Can I ask you to backtrack a little bit? Because you said some of your family reacted. They were like, that's okay. And some of them were not okay with it. How did your girlfriend react? Because obviously you two were living together. You'd been together for a while, right? So how did she react? Was that hard? Was that an easy conversation? You know, how did that play out?
It definitely was not an easy conversation with my girlfriend, because yeah, like you said, we were living together. We had a rabbit together, my first pet. But yeah, it was that was not a fun conversation. There was a lot. It was like a 2-month span that was very hard. Like there was always an elephant in the room. Like we tried to make the most of it, because my plan was, and I know this sounds very selfish, but I knew it's what I had to do, was we were going to break up when I left. So it was like 2 months of just like us, like knowing there was a timer on our relationship. And so my girlfriend had moved to Maine from New York. Sorry. She did move from Maine from New York, but she'd also moved from North Carolina to New York after school. And so like that was a little bit of my inspiration, to be honest with you. It was like, she can move to a whole nother, from like a rural state to New York City, the the biggest city in the country, or the not the biggest, but you know what I mean, the busiest city in the country. And I was like, if she can do it, and if she can do it, like I can do this too. Mm-hmm. So like I'll be on, like she was a pretty big inspiration for that, and yeah, but it was not a good conversation. Like I said, those 2 months were tough.
And you were going to church as well during this time.
Yes.
As your relationship.
Yes. So yeah, I started going to church. Can
I ask also, how did she react to that?
Me going to church?
Yeah, was she like cool with it, or was she not? She wasn't into it.
Yeah, my girlfriend was. She was okay with it. She didn't mind. I would invite. She wasn't like. She didn't really care. She grew up in a pretty Christian home. She was baptized twice. But I would ask her to come with me and she never would. So that was a kind of an affirmation of us separating was kind of the right thing. And yeah, it was definitely tough. There was a lot of rough conversations, which I think I kind of needed because I never had an adult relationship like that before. So it helped me be able to learn someone else's perspective in a way, like how I can really hurt people with my actions. But so yeah, I'm going to church more. It's now August and I'm all in. And so Keegan's baptisms were coming up, or the baptisms at the church that we were attending, the baptisms were coming up, and I go in support of Keegan, of course. It was a great experience, but there was a service before the baptisms. It was on a Sunday, and I remember after the service, the pastor was saying like the last prayer before going to the baptisms. Mm-hmm. I remember closing my eyes. And I remember I would always see you like doing this. So I was like, I'm going to do that too. And so I did that, and I remember closing my eyes, and the Holy Spirit was so heavy. I remember my eyes were closed and I saw a face, and I was like, that's Jesus. Like that had to have been Jesus. So we go out to the baptisms. Baptisms were awesome. It was a great environment. Everyone was so happy, so supportive. And Keegan goes. He was the last one to go, as he said on his testimony. He had a great little speech. It was great, very inspiring. And so the pastor, after Keegan goes, asks, would anybody else like to get baptized? And I didn't even think, like, it felt like something took me over. And I mean, I know now it was the Holy Spirit. At the time, I didn't realize. Something pulled me, like something took me over, and I was like, I'll do it. And like everyone was like, what? Like, what is it? Like, no way. Like even the pastor was surprised.
Can I just say, I remember like I was standing there like in my towel, and he asked that question, and I was just kind of chilling, not really thinking anyone was gonna step up. And then I like looked up and we made eye contact, and I could like see your spirit like yearning to go up. And I remember we like locked eyes, and I was like, he's gonna do it. Like I knew in my spirit that you were gonna do it, but it took like a couple seconds, but then you like,
Yeah.
that was cool.
I'll be honest with you. Like after I had seen the face, or I'd seen Jesus's face, I was like, I feel like I knew I needed to get baptized like already. Like I could like. It was crazy, just like you said, my spirit was yearning for that. Like I needed to signify that I was changing. So yeah, I go up and the pastor's like, "Are you sure? Like have you like even read the Bible? Have you like ever even prayed?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "But I just feel like this is the right thing to do." And I was like, my heart was beating so fast, like I don't even know how to explain the feeling. Like it was just like, oh my goodness, like it was just the spirit was so vibrant, and like I like didn't even feel like myself anymore. Like it was so weird. And like I didn't even like, the pastor like asked me like, have I done any of these things? And, like no words. Like I wasn't even like speaking in coherent sentences, I feel like. And he like had me like say something. I don't even remember what it was. I was just like so into like going in the water. And so yeah, I step in. The pastor, I remember him saying specifically like, we need to keep him on a short leash, Lord. Like make sure he's gonna make mistakes, but he's gonna learn to like how important this is. Like I don't remember 100%, but I just remember him saying to keep me on a short leash, which is understandable. So yeah, they dunked me under the water, and like I just felt like the craziest like release of like pressure and emotion like leave my heart. And I start like instantly crying. I mean, instantly crying. Like I like the most I've cried like ever. It was crazy. Like all of like any emotion I had ever felt like was just released. And I remember saying to the pastor pulls me up and he's like, "How does that feel?" And I was like, I feel like the weight of I felt like the weight of the world is off my shoulders or something like that. And I was like, dang, that's crazy to say now that I think about it, because all of it literally was my flesh and my worldly desires leaving. That's crazy. I never thought of that. But yeah, and then I was like, I told the pastor, I was like, I never committed to anything in my life. And he was like, well, this is the best thing to commit to. And I was like, here we go. I was like, here we go. Like, it's true. It's like I said, like always being caught in the middle. Like I never committed to anything. Even the things that I cared about, I wouldn't be all in. But now I knew like, this is it. Like this is the thing to be all in for. And yeah, I continue to cry. Instantly, like a couple people come up to me and are like super supportive, and it's like a support that I hadn't felt ever. Like I was like, wow, this is what a Christian community is like. Like these people are amazing. And I remember the last person to come up to me was like, he was like, I don't remember exactly what he said. He was like, I remember looking over to you and like just feeling like an aura, like seeing like a light coming or something, like coming from me or something like that. And it's just crazy how strong the spirit was moving inside of me in that moment. And so yeah, this is August. So
hold on, before we move past this, I want to say I remember like when you like first got out of the tub, like, and you were bawling, and I remember like when like we brought you a towel, and then another random guy like came up to you, and I remember he was just like, I also was baptized in the spur of the moment decision, and I was like, that is so like, I feel like that for like me, like who having just been saved in January and like seeing you go through with that, but then also seeing that emotional side of you, because I've never
Yeah.
like seen you in that way before that. And so I was like, okay, like what I was feeling and how, like, I knew God and I knew that I experienced him, and it was like I was seeing you experience him how I've experienced him, and it was like the crazy, like, not in like a, like, it was just like, wow, like if I am experiencing him, like it could just be like a coincidence, and like I might just be feeling something in my heart that just, maybe I was looking for something and this is it.
Yeah.
Like what, but like to see you also then have a like nearly identical reaction in like fully experiencing God's spirit, like I was just like, yeah, like that was even more confirmation for me. And then seeing other people come up to you, and like then my mom also told me about the guy saying that um, he saw you when you walked in, like a light glimmering.
Yeah.
And it's like that's just like, it's so surreal that all of those things happened. Like you weren't even supposed to, like, it's crazy how God mapped out this entire thing, right? Like it, he has a plan for all of this, and he redeemed like your indecision. He redeemed your, like, that's so beautiful.
Yeah. Like once, yeah, that's what the pressure was for sure. Like all of the mistakes and sins I had made were, they were gone, I guess I could say, which is an amazing feeling. Still a work in progress though, of course. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so throughout all of August, I go every Sunday to church, and it was great. Just like super excited to finally be able to leave. Like, yeah, and then we get to the point of our last service at our church, and I was able to bring my mom, which was awesome. It's like the first time my mom had probably been to church in a while. But I'm so glad that she got to see, and my little sister was, one of my little sisters was there. She got to see. The Spirit was definitely moving in that moment, especially for us, because the lead pastor asked everybody to pray for us at the end. And again, like it was another crazy spiritual moment for me. Like I could easily feel the waves of the Holy Spirit coming from the other people, and like it just again affirmed that I was doing the right thing and that this was God's path for me. And yeah, it was the perfect way to leave home, to be honest. It made me want to learn God so much, and it just made me love Christians, made me love God that much more. So yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about being here. I know we wanted.
No, yeah, that's fine. So
we drive here, which is its own episode. So please watch. It's a great episode.
Yeah. You know it.
But yeah, we get to SF, and we were very lucky. Again, God's timing, crazy. Our first weekend here there's a conference at a local church, which is now our home church of SF. and it was called the Encountering God Conference, where this church brought in a pastor from London, and he was awesome. Awesome pastor, made everything very relatable, and just very great public speaker. Like it was great. So yeah, that was our first weekend here. It was a Saturday day and a Sunday, or was it a Saturday? It was a Saturday night conference and then a Sunday night conference, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that was a crazy moment for me because I'm coming into this church that was probably filled with like hundreds of people, and the church that we were going to in Maine was probably like 50 to 100 people per service, which is great. I mean, it definitely gave like a family feeling, but this was like a big church, a ton of people, hundreds of people. So nothing I'd ever experienced before, but it was amazing seeing this many people, hundreds of people being affected by the Holy Spirit. So yeah, I remember at one of the conferences they did an altar call for. Do you remember what they said?
Yeah. So the first part was like people who felt like God was really moving in their lives, and that was like the first group of people that was called. And then I think the second group of people that were called were people that were they were unsure. They felt like they were experiencing God, but they didn't know if it was God, or they were starting to lean away, or they were just unsure.
Yeah, and I felt like I kind of fit in both categories in a way. So I went up to the altar call, and a bunch of people went up to the altar call, which was awesome. I had never done an altar call before, but I just saw like a bunch of people like on their knees, a bunch of people crying, like a bunch of people like just getting affected by the Holy Spirit. And so I was like, okay, I get on my knees, I get in what is it called?
A posture of receiving.
That's what it is, yeah. Yeah. And I close my eyes and I'll say this. God gave me a vision of being on a worship team and eventually creating a worship team. And I don't know if I should talk about us making a church. But yeah, okay. So yeah, me building a worship team and me and Keegan being the pastor and me being the worship leader at a church that we created. It was I'd never experienced a vision like this before, and I felt like that was God showing me, if I am obedient to his path, what the outcome will be. And it was a crazy feeling. I start crying, and I remember, so that this church has a prayer team, and they had the prayer team going around like everybody doing the altar call, and they would just like pray for them really quickly. Like nobody had to say anything. That was just the prayer team would come up to someone and just pray for them. So I remember someone of the prayer team came up to me, but they didn't pray for me. They just like put their hands like on my shoulders, and I started crying even harder. Like I don't know what it was. Like I just like felt so much love in this moment. Like, so the Holy Spirit was moving so vividly, and it was crazy. Like, so yeah, and then so yeah, that was a crazy moment. That was just like clear, like I'm feeling God's presence. God is real. Holy Spirit's real. It's all real. So yeah, and then at the next Encountering God conference, we meet this super handsome, amazing hair.
Facts. Yeah.
Guy.
Tall, just
Tall.
jacked. Like, he's just that guy.
He's super smart.
Yeah.
His name is Ethan, and he invites us to a young adult Christian gathering where people in SF's a big city, of course, so there's not a ton of ways for Christians to build community, and he and his friend were trying to help build that community. And he sat next to us by the grace of God. He sat next to us, and
And I think I told you guys this, but I almost didn't go that night.
Yeah.
Like, I was so close to not going. I was like, I don't even want to go to this, and but I just felt like I was supposed to go.
Crazy. Crazy. I think you should say that on it's your episode, because that is crazy. But yeah, it's just crazy that out of all the places he could have sit in a big church, he sat next to Keegan. Keegan and Ethan is that handsome guy's name. Yeah. They exchanged phone numbers, and he invited us to this community young adult Christian community gathering, which was next weekend. Another crazy God timing moment. And we go, and again, like, this is where I learned, like, how amazing the Christian community is, even more so, because we go and we go in these 2 conversation lines, and we open up about parts of our lives, emotional, dark points of our lives, and I was able to open up about things that I had never really talked to anybody about, and these were like strangers, like people I had never met before, but it felt okay. Like, it felt like I felt comfortable, and I felt secure in this with these people. And so it was amazing to be able to talk about these demons and talk about these depressive, anxious moments of my life. And yeah, it's been it's inspired me even more to just continue to grow a relationship with God, because these are people that are farther along in their Christian lifetime, but it made me realize, like, I want to get to this point of being able to hear God's voice, being able to talk to God, and build that relationship with him, because of all of the amazing things he's doing for me.
I think that's, like, that last part with the lines and, like, you sharing with strangers, like, I feel like that's so, like, powerful. And especially, like, because when you talk about your experience in your childhood, and, like, you had a lot of friends, you knew a lot of people, but, like, you only had a close knit group. Like, you had a couple of close friends that really, like, you bonded with, and even then, like, you were committed to some of them, you probably weren't committed to others of them.
Yeah.
And yet in this moment, like, you're so new in your experience with God, but yet you meet a random person and you're able to be vulnerable and share your testimony in the answer to short questions that, like, I remember, I can't remember what one of the questions was, but I remember you sharing, like, at that first night. Yeah. And I was like, and it wasn't like, what's your favorite color? Like, it was like a deep question. And so for me, I was like, oh, okay, he's comfortable in this situation. But then, like, hearing you say your life story, it's like something in you changed.
For sure.
And what that something, I think, is the Holy Spirit is creating you into a person who can be vulnerable, because you know that it comes with being vulnerable allows you to love others and others to love you. And so I think that's so powerful that you are experiencing that and you were able to express yourself in that way.
Yeah, it was amazing. And what you had just said about being able to love others and letting others love you, that was a big thing growing up. Like, not having that full commitment to people, and not being able to be vulnerable. I felt like I couldn't like show emotion or convey emotion in a way that showed how much I loved people or like loved that person. I never really showed appreciation for the people I was close with because I didn't commit to them in that emotional way that you're supposed to the people you're close to. So, I mean, like, a lot of the conversations I had with these people I had literally just met were deeper than the conversations I'd had from people that I'd known a majority of my life. So, yeah, it's committing to God has spread out into other parts of my life, like committing to the Bible. Like, I was never read. I literally never read, and I mean, I read at least 2 to 5 chapters a day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for someone who's never read before, like, I've read like 200 something pages, and I probably haven't read a book since 2020. No, not even 2019. So that's crazy. And like, just the connection I can create with people now is so much greater, and the patience I have for when something becomes strenuous or like tough, just like being able to think in my head, like, how can I be more Christ-like, allows me to be a better person overall, like to be more patient, understanding, and try to help people as much as I can, which was something I definitely lacked growing up. I didn't really care. Like, if someone were to open up to me about something, which honestly rarely happened because I wasn't like a good listener or a good, like, I couldn't relate to that person. Like, I couldn't have empathy for that person. But it's like, now I can, because if someone's opening up to me, I can now realize it and be like, how can I help them in this situation? And that's literally only because in my mind, I want to try to be more like Christ. And I literally do think, what would Christ do? Like, I know that's like kind of like a joke, but it's true. I mean, he's perfect. And me trying to strive to be like Christ has allowed me to grow as a person. It's allowed me to absolve my porn addiction has definitely been hindered. I'm reading. I'm trying to be more like self-disciplined with things. And it's amazing once you build that relationship, and once my eyes were open to God and to Christ, like you said in your testimony, I could never go back. I could definitely never, ever go back, because I know now the actions I make, God sees them. And I don't want to upset God. And I don't mean that in like, I mean, he is my father. So like, it is like a parental, like I see it as like a parental role. Like, you don't want to upset your parents. Like, at least I hope you don't want to upset your parents. But it's just, it forces you to hold yourself to a higher standard once you have the perspective of God sees what I'm doing. So why would I upset him?
And I think the thing too that's so awesome with that, and I don't know that we've touched on it in any of our episodes, is it's like, it's okay. Like, we fall short every day.
True.
And like, we have moments when we lapse in judgment. We have moments where we're not perfect. But there is one who was perfect, and that is Jesus.
Yes.
And so, just like you said, with striving to be like him, we're not going to end up being perfect. And we all, like, everyone that follows Christ should know that we're not going to be perfect. But it's that striving and pursuit of not trying to let him down. But also knowing that there's grace for all of us because Jesus lived the perfect life, died on the cross for all of our imperfections. And that's what the gospel is. That's
what
what
I say. That's the gospel.
That's the gospel. That is, like, Jesus did it so that we didn't have to, and yet we love him. You love him so much that you're trying to show him that, and even just in the fact that you're trying to show him that, he's proud of you.
Absolutely.
And if you weren't trying, still proud of you because he loves you.
Absolutely.
Like you said, he's your father. And so I just want to add that little touch because I know we've forgotten to mention that a couple times, but I think that's that was a great segue you had. Like, that's just perfect.
Yeah, no, that's the foundation of Christianity, man. That's the most important thing. And I like how you said we'll never be perfect. It's not about being perfect. It's just about growing and trying to become a better person. And I know a lot of people say, they put it on themselves, like they say, just cut out the middleman. Just be a good person. The world is the dark spirits of the world are a lot stronger than you think. And in those moments where I don't want to be patient, me 6 months ago wouldn't have been a patient person. I wouldn't have been an empathetic person. But striving to be more Christ-like allows that perspective of caring more. And yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, well, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing some stuff that I feel like a lot of people might not know about you. And so I think that that's amazing and encouraging, and I know that the person that needs to hear this is going to hear this. And I know that family and friends watching, like, this is real and just authentic. Like, Matt, you have like, in being your friend, like, in seeing the person you're becoming, like, you are on a great path. And just, I encourage you, like, just as your friend, just keep going, and like, you're gonna do great things. So,
I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much.
And
is there any last words? I think, is that where you're
yeah.
Last words.
Anything you want to say to the people watching at home?
Yeah, let me say this. Just take the step of try to look into God. Like, just look into Christianity and try to hear the voice of God one time, because that one time you may hear him and he may have a life-changing message for you. Like Keegan said, Christianity is not about being perfect. God understands that we will never be perfect people, and he just wants to have a relationship with you. He just wants to be able to talk to you. He wants you to be able to talk to him, and he just wants to see you be the best version of yourself. So just one night before going to bed, like, just ask God to reveal himself to you. And he might do it. He might not. He might do it another way on another day, but he might reveal himself to you that day, and your life could be changed forever.